Good afternoon, I'm Sani Rudravajula and welcome to Quays News. On today's programme, we take a look at the effects of the pandemic on education.
There's some things that we just can't control. We're just trying our best to give every child the best chance. And obviously when we get back to school, there will be a lot of catch-up work needed to be done in all aspects.
As a learner driver, it feels like they just want to make money out of you. Because it is the government's fault that they keep putting us into lockdown, they should at least give your retake, pay it for you, give it you for free. If you fail, fair enough, you pay for your next one.
Are learner drivers being treated unfairly? And is getting a dog in lockdown worth the cost? Our top story. As a parent, you may be concerned for your child's learning, but the 8th of March is the date that's been confirmed for schools to return. Georgia Scott has this report.
For the best part of a year, school playgrounds around the country have been unusually quiet. In just over a week, the gates will reopen again. After months of isolation and learning from home, it's welcome news for students, parents and teachers.
Hi everyone and welcome back to Maths. This week we're going to be learning about counting in twos.
Teachers have been trying their best to make sure that no children are disadvantaged, but at the end of the day, there's some things that we just can't control. We're just trying our best to give every child the best chance. And obviously when we get back to school, there will be a lot of catch-up work needed to be done in all aspects.
For sixth formers and students facing exams, lockdown has been a challenge, so a return can't come soon enough.
I feel like I'm less focused in lessons and not taking it in as much, and you're not getting your work checked as much, so you don't know whether you're making progress and stuff.
Many students feel you just can't put a price on face-to-face teaching.
The whole process becomes easier. It's a much more vibrant environment. It's easier to concentrate. It's just much easier to get on with it.
This lack of contact has also meant teachers are struggling to assess students' progress and identify who's falling behind.
We just don't know how well these students are. Have they managed independently at home? Have they been able to access the resources properly? How are they doing in themselves? How is their mental health?
So much that students used to take for granted has been out of reach, so it's not just academic progress that has suffered. The Children's Commissioner, Anne Longfield, says there's been a 50% increase in children's mental health issues during lockdown. She estimates around £10 billion will be needed to tackle this. So March the 8th marks the beginning of the challenge to repair the damage that months of isolation has caused young people.
Georgia, we know how hard homeschooling has been for many parents. How difficult will this catch-up process be?
It's going to be a challenge. Each child's catch-up process is going to be completely different, depending on how they've coped in lockdown and also their access to resources. So around 9 million people in the UK are considered to be digitally excluded. So many children haven't had access to broadband. And one estimate said that around 1 million students were doing their homeschooling from a mobile phone. So until they're back at school and face-to-face, no one's going to know exactly how much needs to be done.
And we've heard a lot about these summer schools. Are those definitely going ahead?
Yeah, they're going ahead. An extra 420 million in funding has been announced for this summer schooling. Teachers' unions are a bit worried about this overwhelming students and teachers. So it might not be the summer that teachers and pupils had hoped for and planned for, but at least it's a safety net for those who might need it.
Well, here's hoping. Thanks, Georgia. The government has come under fire for its refusal to extend theory test certificate periods during the pandemic. Some learner drivers are being forced to fork out extra funds to reset tests that they've already passed. Megan Matthews has this report.
Learning to drive is renowned for being a complicated skill as well as a rite of passage. But the current generation of learner drivers are facing more roadblocks than most. This is Ruby, one of the many learner drivers learning to drive during the pandemic. Due to lockdowns and ever-changing government restrictions, the last year of her education has been documented by test cancellations and postponements. While she only recently took her theory test, others are at risk of having to retake theory exams if their wait for practical tests overruns the 2-year theory test grace period. But some have questioned if this is more about making money than road safety.
The reason they want you to retake your theory is because they want your highway code knowledge to be up to date, which I can fully understand, completely get that. Rules are changing all the time. But when you pass your test, you don't have to retake your theory. So what's the difference? Because you can already drive, you're just waiting to take your test. So I don't really see the logic behind it. I think as a learner driver, it feels like they just want to make money out of you. Because it is the government's fault that they keep putting us into lockdown. They should at least give your retake, pay it for you, give it you for free. If you fail, fair enough, you pay for your next one.
However, not everybody agrees with these suggestions.
I must admit, there's been a few petitions around to sign to say that it's unfair to make them take it again, but I've not signed it because I think they should take them again. As harsh as that seems, you know, it's for a reason. It's because there's a lot of elements that you need to know that you learn on the theory side of it. You know, rules, regulations, road signs.
Shadow Transport Secretary Jim McMahon has called on the government to extend theory test certificates by a year. This follows analysis which revealed that more than 300,000 practical tests were cancelled in the first half of 2020 alone. 140,000 practical tests are usually taken each month. Since the pandemic, this figure has dropped to just 2,000. Across April, May and June of 2020, only 6,000 learner drivers took their test. This is 50 times fewer than the 400,000 who took their test in the same period of 2019. Other political parties are also endorsing Labour's suggestions.
I know that there's legislation in place and it's difficult, but as you say, because COVID is such a sort of one-off remarkable thing where everything's having to really grind to a halt across the country, a lot of things have been changed, a lot of legislation has been put in because of it. So I think it would be a good gesture by the government if they could either agree to extend the period for a year or at the very least, say, for somebody who's already passed the test to waive it if they're insisting on them waive the charge if they're insisting on them taking it again.
Regardless of the government's decision concerning theory tests, one thing is for sure. The pandemic has created a disillusioned and disenchanted next generation of drivers.
And the National Farmers Union have had their first virtual conference post-Brexit. The union were looking to plough through some order of business and climate change was high up on the agenda. Our agricultural correspondent Lucy Baxter has been finding out more.
A new report by the National Farmers Union was announced yesterday at their conference. There was particular focus to create net zero carbon emissions within agriculture by 2040. How do farmers feel about this responsibility?
As long as all environmental schemes that they're thinking about bringing out are properly funded, and we will very much support them as a farmer and as a concerned and environmentally conscious person as well.
What we have got is the capability to deliver as farmers, and we're very, as you can imagine, a very diverse set of people and landscapes that we manage. And it's the landscapes around our farming that will deliver on net zero, along with the investments that are required, the support that governments are going to offer. And I don't mean just financial support, regulatory support that actually delivers both on food supply, sustainability, and the ambition to be net zero.
The principal emissions within the agricultural sector are methane and nitrous oxide. In 2017, 10% of the UK's greenhouse gas emissions were from agriculture.
UK agriculture has the ability to sequester a lot of carbon out of the atmosphere. If every single farm was able to do something, and I'm not saying every single farm will, but if they were, then you would start to see a vast improvement in the environment around us, not just in the countryside, but in the towns and cities as well. Cleaner air, cleaner water quality. Everything around agriculture doesn't just have an impact on farms, it has an impact on towns and cities as well. And moving towards net zero, if we're going to implement these new cleaner environmental practices, it's going to have a benefit for all of us, not just the countryside population.
Farmers are still waiting for a detailed framework from the government on how their farms can achieve net zero, but an announcement will be welcome amongst the community. Lucy Baxter, Quays News, Lancashire.
And looking at a daily COVID update, well, I will come back to that actually. Well, we're going to move on actually to looking at a rock. Well, we're going to come back to. Right, we're going to move on to looking at the restrictions which are starting to ease. Satara Bartle has found out the impact that a young man has had in uniting people through their mental health experiences.
The COVID-19 pandemic has put a huge strain on many young people who are already struggling with their mental health.
I was basically just watching TV and just in an instant, suddenly my sort of everything flipped. Felt like I'd almost lost control of my mind.
Mental health struggles arise for different reasons. This may include traumatic experiences, social isolation, loss of routine, and even a breakdown in formal and informal support. A study conducted by Young Minds found that 80% said the coronavirus pandemic had made their mental health worse. 41% said the coronavirus pandemic had made their mental health much worse. 87% felt lonely or isolated during the lockdown period. Dan didn't let his feelings get the better of him. He set up an Instagram account called Strengthen Stories. It allows young people to share their mental health challenges. They are reassured they're not alone. Alex Thomas contributed his story to the page. He was challenged when he stopped swimming competitively after injury. He acknowledges the page's importance.
Everyone can get the flu, right? So everyone can struggle mentally, and it really provides with a sense of comfort that you're not the only one out there.
Dan spent hours searching the internet for stories of people who had faced similar mental health challenges. He would cling to the few success stories like a lifeline. However, there was no one single place where he could turn to. Thus, the idea for the Instagram account arose. He wants to show that people can live successful lives with mental health problems. His key message to everyone is:
act earlier.
Did you know it's Real Bread Week? Well, Zoe Toast has been finding out how to meet the needs of customers.
Banana breads, flour shortages and the rise of the home baker, the bread industry has certainly not been one to loaf around during lockdown. In the first 2 months of last year, more than 45,000 pictures of banana breads were posted onto Instagram. Many of these passion bakers have now turned professional, with the surge of micro bakeries across the nation aiming to bring together communities through a love of real bread.
We are a micro bakery based at home. So this is the bakery. Our kitchen is the bakery. Had some spare bread, which I thought I'll put on our local Facebook group and see if anyone wants to buy. And they sold, and that's how we started. When we deliver the bread, we don't just drop the bread on your step and run away. I know all my customers. I know what they look like. It makes no sense to deliver what I do with a car. It's made locally, delivered locally with a bike. Small businesses are much more flexible and quicker to adapt than a large, and especially when it comes to food production. There is research that shows that for every pound spent locally on the local high street, I think it's between 60 or 70p circulates back into the economy. Whereas for every pound spent online or kind of the large retailer, it's only about 5p. A thriving small business is a sign of a healthy community.
The Real Bread campaign, whose annual Bread Week runs until February the 28th, aims to spotlight local bakeries and encourage communities to buy locally. Local businesses have faced many challenges during lockdown, but the online world has become a lifeline for independents to offer new initiatives such as delivery services and online workshops.
We're going to make bagels. So has anyone had bagels? Obviously COVID hit. And everything changed because all of the face-to-face workshops couldn't go on anymore. You never know who you're going to meet on these workshops, especially online, because you don't know where they've come from. It's just that reach of a global audience. So there has been it has brought people together. And I do hope that after this is all finished, that this stays, because I think that hopefully we won't be in too much of a rush to all go back to buying everything from the supermarkets. There is a place for a supermarket, absolutely, but I do think it's really important to support the local businesses and just normal families who are just trying to get by.
This year's annual Real Bread Week, there has never been a more important time to support a local business. Zoe Toes, Quays News.
Well, you may not feel like you can escape the football, but the Champions League is back and Manchester City are in action tonight in the Europe's Premier competition. They're away in Hungary to play Borussia Mönchengladbach, the German side, and they're playing there due to the COVID restrictions that are in place in the first round of 16. The citizens are looking to carry an unbeaten run against the German side that stretched back throughout the competition. And moving on to cricket, England were completely skittled for 112 in the third test against India. So not a great start at all. The score in the series is currently 1-1, and England's Jimmy Anderson, or Lancashire's Jimmy Anderson, will be left frustrated so far. But can he make the difference? We'll have to find out there. And moving on to football as well, Salford City last night fell 2-1 down to Morecambe away. They were leading after a goal from Brandon Thomas Asante in the first half, but two last-minute goals from Morecambe sealed the points for them against the Ammies. The Ammies boss, Richie Towell, said that maybe his side needs a bit more mental strength going forwards. That's all from me here today, and have a wonderful evening wherever you're watching us today.